In the 1920s, the combination of difficult economic conditions, prohibition, and widespread public corruption in the United States created an atmosphere in which organized crime thrived. One of the most notorious mobsters of that era was a Polish-American known as Hymie Weiss. Although he was raised a Roman Catholic, Weiss engaged in a lot of violent criminal activity in his short life, and was said to be the only man that the infamous Al Capone was ever truly afraid of. While some assumed that Hymie Weiss had German Jewish roots, he was in fact a Polish Catholic. He was born Henry Wojciechowski, in Chicago. His father, Walente, was born in Poland while his mother, Mary Bruszkiewicz, was born in Buffalo. Walente was a factory worker who lost his job during the Panic of 1893, which led to a serious economic depression. Unable to find work, he joined a movement of unemployed men who planned to march to Washington to protest the lack of jobs, led by Ohio businessman Jacob Coxey. However, they were decried by the media as low class, and authorities sought to stop their progress. Walente was part of a contingent of a couple hundred Polish and Eastern European Coxeyites, assembled in Buffalo by Józef Rybakowski. On August 24, 1894, sheriff's deputies in Cheektowaga went after the group on horseback and armed with clubs. In the battle that ensued, Walente ended up with scalp wounds. In addition, he and 64 other men were locked up for 30 days in the penitentiary. By the time it entered Washington, Coxey's army only had about 500 men instead of the thousands expected. Coxey tried to present his ideas on creating jobs through public works projects to President Grover Cleveland and the Congress, but was arrested for trespassing on public property. The concept of creating jobs through public works projects was finally implemented years later with Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal. After his release, Walente moved his wife and 3 sons to Chicago, where they had a daughter and another son, Henry Earl, who was born on January 25, 1898. Walente ran a saloon, and his youngest son apparently liked hanging out with the rough crowds there. The youngster's parents, who were then separated, sent him to Catholic school to ostensibly instill some religious values. At some point the family name was changed to Weiss. That may be why he picked up the nickname Hymie. Some people also thought that he looked Jewish, with his thin and wiry build, dark hair and brown eyes. Most of his friends called him Earl, but to other gangsters and the newspapers he was Little Hymie or Hymie the Polak. Weiss was a tough kid who seemed to inherit some of his father's combativeness. As a young teen he engaged in petty crimes and ran with the Polish street gangs in Chicago. He wanted to fight the Germans in the war but was rejected by the US Army because of a double rupture. He was so angry about that rejection that he once shot his brother Fred for taunting him about not serving during the war. The Army's loss was gangland's gain. Not only was Weiss fearsome and dangerous, but he was smart and a good organizer. He joined Chicago mobster Dean O'Banion and the Irish-Polish-Italian-Jewish organization known as the North Siders. They controlled bootlegging and ran illegal gambling operations in their territory and engaged in other criminal activity. The North Siders had a strong dislike for the mostly Italian South Side mob, led by Johnny Torrio and Al Capone. It was not just due to greed and ethnic differences, but also because the North Siders were staunch churchgoers, and they didn't like that the Italian mob ran houses of prostitution. Weiss was a man of contradictions. Despite his life of crime, he wore a crucifix, carried a rosary, and regularly attended Mass at Holy Name Cathedral, located right across the gang's headquarters. Weiss had a reputation for helping out poor people in the neighborhood, but he could also be hot-tempered and vicious. He is said to have devised the one-way ride, in which an unsuspecting victim is given a ride in a car's front passenger seat, and then is suddenly shot or strangled by a backseat killer. Weiss suffered from painful migraines, and once said, "I don't expect to live long, but I expect to live long enough." Many felt that was why he was so daring and fearless. Relations between the North and South Side gangs deteriorated as O'Banion sought to expand his territory, and in 1924, O'Banion was killed by the South Side mob. Weiss, who by then was O'Banion's right-hand man, took over and swore revenge. In 1925, he and his men attacked Torrio in front of his house. Torrio survived the attack, but was seriously wounded and returned to his native Italy. Weiss then went after Capone. Capone was said to be genuinely afraid of his rival, and his requests for truces were rejected by Weiss. They made numerous attempts to kill each other. At one point, 7 carloads of Northsiders shot up Capone's headquarters at the Hawthorne Hotel in Cicero. They nearly destroyed the building, but Capone survived. On October 11, 1926, Weiss was about to enter his headquarters, when he and his men came under a hail of gunfire from a nearby second-story window. Weiss was seriously wounded and died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. He was just 28. Among the possessions found on Weiss' body were $6,000 in cash and checks, a list of jurors in the trial of Ally Polak Joe Soltis, a 1911 Colt automatic pistol, and his personal Bible.